Today we have the story of a true serial killer who is also known as youngest serial killer of India, Amarjeet Sada. How was Amarjeet's early years? In the town of Begusarai in the Indian state of Bihar, Amarjeet was born in 1998 to a working-class Indian couple. His parents' meager income made life for the family difficult. They frequently went without food. His mother gave birth to a girl when he was 7 years old. With 4 mouths to feed and a small income, the family's struggle to survive only grew more difficult. The question asked by police officer, "Did you kill Khushbu? If you give me a packet of cookies, I'll tell you." The officer in charge, OIC, Inspector Shatrughan Kumar, of the Bhagalpur police station in the Indian state of Bihar, was astounded by the individual who was quietly seated before him. The youngster was now pleading with a police officer for cookies after brutally killing 3 infants. Shatrughan battled the impulse to lash out in a violent manner as his blood boiled with wrath. However, he was unable to do so since the child who was seated before him was only 7 years old. And when the police officers questioned him later, he casually admitted, "I killed her by repeatedly hitting her with a brick." Amarjeet was a shy, quiet child who enjoyed playing with trinkets, climbing trees, and exploring the village. He was a lonesome person who preferred to be by himself and had no companions. His aunt and his 6-month-old cousin paid them a visit at this time. Amarjeet's aunt was planning to keep her child in their home while she settled into her new job because she had recently relocated to the city. Amarjeet was left in charge of the 2 infants by his mother when she went to the neighborhood market to buy vegetables a few days after his aunt left. Something horrible snapped inside the child as he observed his 6-month-old cousin dozing off in his bed. He first began pinching and slapping one of the infants, giggling as the child started to wail. Amarjeet gradually gained confidence as he wrapped his hands around the baby. Finally, he strangled the child to death. Then, stealthily, he went to the woodland close by, grabbed a brick, and beat the infant's head into a pulp. He calmly went back home after callously burying the infant beneath the grass, his next target. Amarjeet's mother was taken aback when he later confessed to her, leaving her uncertain about how to proceed. Later that night, his father resorted to physical punishment for his abhorrent deed, but unfortunately, it was too late. This marked the beginning of their first error. Driven by their parental instincts, instead of turning him over to the authorities, they protected him and fabricated an accident story to tell their aunt. The aunt's belief in the tale remains unknown, but for the time being, Amarjeet managed to evade any consequences. Growing bolder, the young boy set his sights on his next victim. On a winter afternoon, while his parents were napping, Amarjeet shifted his attention to his 8-month-old sister. With a smile on his face, he approached her and gently lifted her from the crib, proceeding to strangle her to death. Amarjeet's mother awoke to the faint cries of the baby and rushed into the room to breastfeed her. However, as soon as she picked up the infant, she realized she was lifeless. Overwhelmed with grief, she turned to Amarjeet and asked, "Did you also kill your sister?" With a smile on his face, he replied, "Yes." Both parents were stunned. His father slapped him and inquired, "Why did you do it?" His response was both shocking and unsettlingly insightful. "Just because." This time, the neighbors discovered what had transpired and urged Amarjeet's parents to hand him over to the police. Yet his parents repeated their mistake and shielded him, pleading with the neighbors to keep the matter a secret. Once again, Amarjeet escaped without facing any consequences, becoming increasingly addicted to what he referred to as a game, during which he confessed to his crimes in disturbing detail. He also admitted to his previous acts of violence. Based on the confession, the police believed they had sufficient evidence to build a case against him. However, under Indian law, he could not be convicted for his crimes due to his young age and non-adult status. Consequently, he was confined to a juvenile remand home for 3 years. Following his release, information regarding his whereabouts remains undisclosed. The motive behind his killings. According to psychiatrists who assessed Amarjeet Sada, it is believed that he may have been afflicted by a behavioral or conduct disorder that hindered his ability to distinguish right from wrong. This type of antisocial behavior is frequently observed in serial killers, and could explain why Amarjeet derives sadistic pleasure from inflicting harm or killing individuals weaker than himself. The underlying cause of his actions can be attributed to a chemical imbalance in the brain, which may also have a hereditary component in certain cases. Psychologists assert that the neurobiological factors contributing to such aggression can be identified in childhood and potentially modified. By understanding how neurobiology and experiences, a combination of nature and nurture, interact to give rise to conduct disorders, it may be possible to intervene and treat aggressive behaviors in children before they escalate into physical violence. If left unchecked, Amarjeet's brutal acts would likely have escalated with each subsequent murder, and his deteriorating mental state would have rendered him an uncontrollable serial killer. During his time in the juvenile remand home, Amarjeet also received medications and underwent psychiatric counseling sessions. However, the efficacy of these interventions remains unknown.